And here we go. And here we go. We just share the YouTube video on our Telegram and Twitter. Okay, should be good to go now. Welcome to our second live video AMA. My name is Raymond van der Waal. I'm head of marketing at Triall. And today I'll be serving a double role as both moderator and interviewee. I'm joined here today by our CEO, Adil Espai, and by our head of product and innovation, Mark van der Waal.
Hey everyone, thanks Ray for organizing this.
Hi all, thanks, glad to be here.
So we'd like to thank you all for joining this session and hope that you will walk away with some new insights and perspectives on what we're doing here at Triall. In terms of agenda for today, we will start off with answering questions that have been submitted to our portal over the past week. And after that, we have some time reserved to answer questions from the live audience. So without further ado, let's start with our first question, which is a question for Adil. A concern I've seen brought up is that the big players have deeply entrenched systems that they are reluctant to replace, especially with newer, less battle-tested technologies. In what ways does Triall plan to overcome that hurdle?
Thanks so much, Ray. Well, that's a very good question coming from Will Davis. So we're spending a lot of time to think about this because we want to be effective and successful in rolling out our technology. There are a few barriers for adoption that we've seen, and the first one is really, to have an understanding of the impact, that Triall can have on the way of working and the impact it has on the working status quo. Disruption of the business model, right? So what needs to be done by the operating model and also how it's being done. So really the impact on how the business model within these companies would be affected if they would, use Triall technologies. But also another barrier is really to understand how it affects their roles, right? We think that through the technology that we as Triall will offer, that some of the roles will change over time and even some of the roles may become obsolete. So that's a big thing that we need to consider. Also, an innovation barrier is really the cost. So, we need to be convincing in terms of where we lower costs and where we lower timelines and where we add value to quality. The other thing, of course, is that as we're still dealing with an emerging technology, although we've been in this space since 2018, there is still a lack of quantifiable evidence. There is no head-to-head comparison that have been done yet. So we also think about how we tackle these innovation barriers. And we really try to accelerate adoption by, first of all, innovating on top of a proven and validated software. So that means we don't need to reinvent the wheel. And I think our partnership with Crucial Data Solutions that we've announced a few weeks ago is really the best example and the proof that we are actually doing that. Other element is really we call it consortium building. So make sure that we don't innovate on our own little island, but that we get the key stakeholders involved and also a part of what kind of products we develop and roll out within Triall, and make sure that everybody's concern is heard and that everybody's gain is also really seen back in products that we do. I think standardization of blockchain on itself is also important. And we try to, not only help with the standardization, but also educate everybody about what blockchain can do. We feel that there is still a lot of unknown about what blockchain is, where it can solve some of the problems, and also what our vision is in terms of where it can add value over time. So to come back to the question, yes, we do see that a lot of, especially the bigger companies, are dealing with legacy systems and that they're entrenched in systems that they use. But I hope I was able to convey that we're very carefully looking at what kind of barriers they have, and that we're also trying to be effective in how we deal with that.
Thank you for the elaborate and informative reply, Hadil. So that brings us to our second question, and this question is for Mark. Is it an advantage that you are located in the Netherlands and that your project is probably more applicable in African countries and some Asian countries? Or is the use of your software the same for all countries?
Yeah, so thanks for that question, of course. So to start with the last part of your question, yes, the software is usable across all countries. It is a secure cloud-based software as a service offering. So it is not limited to a certain country or a geography. And we adhere to international quality standards and clinical trial regulations. Currently, actually, there are studies being performed on our platform in South and Middle America, Southern and Western Africa, the Middle East, basically across all continents. And the Triall platform and its software is really designed to be used across the globe, really, by any device, from any location. We offer web-based and also native mobile applications, and it allows researchers to collect data and manage their trials remotely. And it also allows patients to participate from their home environments. So we think this is a very important feature set because it enables to run clinical trials in a more decentralized way. And I know that the word decentralized is often thrown around, definitely in the blockchain space, but in the clinical trial space, it means that research activities move away from the hospitals and towards the patient communities, basically. So this decentralized trial model is more inclusive to patient communities that live far away from a hospital or patients that have difficulty traveling. And it is considered by many to be the next paradigm, really, in how we can conduct clinical trials. So that's the final part of your question. But to get back to the first part of your question, I think it helps that we are located in the Netherlands for multiple reasons. So the Netherlands is at the heart of a very vibrant life sciences industry. Many companies, organizations conducting medical research, working in clinical development, biotechnology, and all within a very close radius. But the Netherlands is also a great place to be if you want to develop blockchain technologies or emerging technologies more generally. We have many leading companies that work together and work close to each other. And I think these factors will be important as well for us in developing Triall into a truly global health technology organization. So I hope that answers your question. Great. I think you're muted.
Sorry. I was just saying, Mark, that you touched upon some great points there. We see that clinical research is becoming more globalized, it's becoming more decentralized, and eventually I hope it will also become more inclusive, especially to those groups of people that don't necessarily live close to a hospital. And we're very happy to leading that innovation from within the Netherlands. Jumping to the next question, and this relates to our target market. So I'm gonna take this one. The question goes as follows. Is your target market only the $200 billion market for pharma R&D, or will you also enter into other markets in the future? Well, the simple answer is yes, we will venture into other markets in the future. But our initial focus will be on clinical trials, given our background in this industry. I mean, we've been operating in this industry for over 20 years, managed 100 clinical trials ourselves. So we have a good understanding of the unique requirements of clinical trial operations and also the hurdles that we currently see. But looking at trial from an ecosystem perspective, we really expect to also expand into adjacent fields over time. Think of preclinical research, so research that's really taking place inside of a lab. Think of medical devices, as we see that devices are playing a bigger and bigger part within medical research. And also think of pharma supply chain. I think there's already some great supply chain blockchain solutions out there. And I think it would make sense to eventually also partner up with some of these initiatives. Also good to mention that the infrastructure that we are developing, mainly the infrastructure related to verifiable proof of data, to decentralizing identity and access management, that's an infrastructure that can really be used across various use cases, across the life science realm and other industries. So there's certainly many opportunities for expanding our ecosystem beyond clinical research. Which brings me to my next question, and this is a question for Adil. As it was mentioned towards my question about funding for TRL, new equity partners seems to be an option. What does it mean if investors are offered equity, or do they buy shares of the company, or do they receive TRL tokens? Adil?
Yeah, that's a very good and very important question. I would like to start answering this question by mentioning that we take the responsibility towards our community, towards our partners, and towards our users of our products very, very seriously. So you can expect that, in the current crypto environment, which can be volatile if you look at what's happening with blockchain on the shorter term, that of course we will be very active in making sure that we have sufficient funds to execute our vision. So in line with that, and of course you can expect that from me as a CEO, I feel very responsible and accountable for that. So we have been looking and are still looking into onboarding equity investors that can support us with the further growth of our ecosystem. And over the past few weeks, we've been talking with a lot of tech savvy and others who are interested, from the clinical trial domain or the crypto domain, to become an investor in Triall. And we have been successful in that. So that means that we have onboarded several new investors in the past few weeks. So we're looking in a strategic fit. So we're looking for an investor that not only provides us with the funds that we need, but also that really help us to accelerate our growth and the scaling of our business. So that can be investors that have a good network in the crypto marketing space, for instance, or on the more technological development space. But it can also be investors that have a very good network in the clinical research or clinical development space. So you can count on us that we are very much making sure that we continue trial business. And once we have an investor, they are basically offered an equity stake in our operating company. I hope that provides sufficient information for this question.
Thanks, Adil. I think it does. That brings me to another question, this time from Mark. Hello, team. When will Triall start to license its API? Does it consider accepting TRL as a means of payment? And if this is the case, would it consider a burn accelerator similar to currently onboarded studies?
Yeah, so this question relates to the burn accelerator program, right? That we initiated. So first of all, TRL is and will remain a central part of all the software sales that we do, and this includes also the APIs. And we will initially focus on the sales and the development of our own platform, but this platform, of course, leverages the APIs in the background, in the backend. And yes, the APIs can also be licensed in by third-party software vendors. We actually welcome this because it means that you have a diverse set of software providers connected to your APIs, and this will really shape a healthy and a self-sustaining ecosystem. But the strategy is to first focus on our own platform, because it also allows us to build awareness throughout the industry in terms of the applicability and the benefits of blockchain and SSI technologies. But this is just kind of a logical order that we have outlined. So in terms of the Burn Accelerator program, this is actually not tied to new customers or to new API customers in that respect, but it is tied to new clinical trials being onboarded into trial software. So it's not related to a new API customer, for instance, but every time that a new study is being contracted and starts using the trial software, the Burn Accelerator kicks in.
Thanks, Mark. That's a clear description of how we tend to approach that. I have another question related to marketing, so I will take that one myself. You have organized a couple of AMAs in recent times, and I know doing AMAs have proven to be the best means to attract investors to your project. Can you share what other marketing strategy you are putting in place to get this project known? Excellent question. I'm going to try to be specific. I think one of the things that we recently started, and you've probably seen this on our profile, is that we started with a new article series called the Triall Product Spotlight. And as part of that series, we walked through the different features and capabilities of our platform. Well, I think that adds value from multiple angles. On one end, it helps us with business development, as it really shows to our target customers what type of products we offer and what the benefits are that arise out of those solutions. It also shows to investors on the crypto side what type of technical capabilities we have. So it's really a multi-audience. It really has a multi-audience use in that sense. Well, to complement those articles, we've also started with a new series that's more focused on educational long reads. The first one we published there was really centered around explaining how blockchain can be used to mitigate the falsification or unintended manipulation of clinical trial data. As we see that there's still a lot of unknowns about how blockchain actually works in hampering those type of processes. And in a similar fashion, we're looking to publish a number of other educational long reads that focus on different important areas within our business and within our target market. We're also still talking with several key opinion leaders, looking to do podcasts and interviews with them. Last month, we had our interview with Real Vision, a huge platform for crypto education. And we also have another podcast session coming up very soon with a large media platform. In parallel to that, we're also looking to participate in industry-specific events and webinars. So we're always monitoring different events to meet up with potential clients, with potential strategic partners. So that's something that we will still be doing on a continuous basis. On the business development side, I think it's also important to mention that we're talking with several marquee customers that already have a wide network themselves. And in that way, we really want to tap into the network of other established parties, both within the clinical trial domain, but also in the crypto domain, to further grow our ecosystem. That brings me to our next question. Does your project have plans to donate a percentage of its profits or revenue to charities? Adil, would you like to take that one?
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, brilliant answer to the previous question, Ray. Very clear, very concise and concrete. So regarding to this question, whether we are planning to donate percentage of profits or revenues to charities, also a very good question. So for the ones who have looked at our white paper, they will see that this was always planned from the get-go. It's really a part of our long-term ecosystem vision. one can wonder why. Why would we do this? First of all, we want to do this because it is, if you think about an ecosystem, it means that it should not only turn about profit, but it also should have a humanistic side. We're dealing in a field where we try to, develop or advance the development of medicine, where we try to put the patient first, where we try to stimulate innovation. So in line with that, we from very early days started thinking about that we should give something back to the community. But like I mentioned, it's part of our long-term vision, and the short-term priority that we currently have, as I feel that focus is very important to be successful. So the first priority for us is to grow our ecosystem in terms of customers, revenue, but also token value and uptake. And we're in the middle of that. But eventually, we will use a small percentage of our revenues to sponsor medical innovations. This can be asking the clinical research community or the crypto community if they have any ideas about how we can strengthen and widen the ecosystem. It could also mean, for instance, that we would provide grants for low to middle income countries, right? To make sure that our technology is also accessible there. But again, while our operating company is now the main driving force within the Triall ecosystem, we really want to make sure that we onboard a growing body of different business entities and disciplinaries. So we have a complete, or the way we call it, an end-to-end ecosystem. And that means that all aspects of clinical trials can basically be found in this one place called Triall. Maybe to add that with TRL as the primary means of value exchange, we really regard Triall as an ever-growing ecosystem for innovation in life sciences.
Thanks, Adil, for the clear answer. That brings me to another product-related question. So I'm going to give that one to you, Mark, if that's okay.
Yep.
How would you assist in keeping users' data safe? And also for maximum user experience, who are those permitted to access the medical data and records available on your platform? Would it be the public, individuals, companies, or trainees, for instance?
Yeah, so this is a very important question because obviously we're operating in an environment that involves sensitive data, medical data, patient data, and it's actually part of our mission to make sure that this data is handled well, right? So we really understand the importance of having the right regulatory controls to collect and protect the data and the quality of the data, integrity of the data. We have dedicated quality and compliance specialists working for us and with us to make sure that this is really that there are no mistakes here, and that we really have the system adhere to the most applicable, most updated guidelines and regulations. So yeah, for instance, we keep user data safe by adhering to the regulations of the EMA, the GCP, the FDA's 21 CFR Part 11, HIPAA, GDPR. There are many regulations. As you can hear, it's a very regulated field. We make sure to adhere to them all. Data is encrypted both in transit and at rest. We never put original data on any blockchain. The blockchain is only used for anchoring privacy-preserving data proofs and decentralized identifiers. So yeah, this is kind of an overview of what we're doing to make sure that everything is appropriate. So answering the question about the access, who is permitted to use the platform. The typical platform users are, of course, clinical researchers that work in pharmaceutical, biotechnology, medical device companies, but also the clinical contract research organizations. Doctors and research nurses are, of course, a very important patient group as well, the so-called investigators, user group, and the patients are a key user group as well. And this is kind of unique for our platform because we have different applications that are really patient focused. So participants not only participate by kind of giving their data to the investigators and the clinical researchers, but they can actually engage with our applications. For instance, the electronic patient-reported outcome application, the e-consent application. And I think Ray just mentioned the Spotlight series, where we go in depth on each of these individual applications. But having these patient-level applications means that patients also become more part of the trial and are empowered in doing so. So in terms of how do we coordinate access, because that's also a very relevant question. Typically, all these different users collaborate on our platform within a single trial, and each of them should have different permissions to access features and to access data. We currently have over 250 configurable role-based options, which can be used to coordinate access to data. And these options are based on the typical functional roles that are usually present in a clinical trial. But looking towards the future, we are working hard on implementing SSI technologies, self-sovereign identity technologies. And these open up entirely new ways actually to coordinate access. So ways that are much more dynamic, much more granular. For instance, you can grant access based on a combination of different user attributes instead of a defined role. And this might sound a bit abstract, but it offers very concrete benefits in terms of interoperability, in terms of findability, in terms of efficiency, trustworthiness as well. But I'm sure that we will zoom in on this later, either in one of the Spotlight series or in one of the AMAs.
Thank you, Mark. So here's a question about our token. Good day to the team. Overall, we have seen an 80 to 90% drop in the value of TRL since its all-time high. Do you see a way back for the TRL token? And what will give investors the confidence to buy when the price has fallen so much in the past 4 months? A good question. I think TRL, like all cryptocurrency, is subject to external market influences that we cannot control. And as a company, we like to put our focus on and efforts on the things that we can control. So to this end, we are really focused on building sustainable value within our target industry, with a strong focus on onboarding new customers and strategic partners, because we know that the successes we book on the clinical trial front will also impact our token price, since an increase in demand for our software will mean an increase in demand for our token. So in other words, we focus on promoting token utility and driving token demands by building real-world value, especially during bear market sentiments. And I think it's also good to mention that regardless of crypto market conditions, the demand for new medicines will be there, and so will be the demand for clinical trial software solutions. So we therefore feel confident that we can build sustainable token value over time, and we will make sure to keep our community informed and involved as we make progress. And that brings me to the final question for this section. For Hadil, would you recruit new members or ambassadors for your projects? And what would be the requirements for getting volunteers? And would you also have scholarship programs? So I would say question mostly related to hiring and expanding our team and surrounding network.
Yeah, another very good question. So the short answer is yes. We are looking to onboard more trial ambassadors going forward. I think we already have a very strong team, a multidisciplinary team, but that team can never be big enough. So yes, we would like to encourage everybody that resonates with trial, that feels that the mission and vision that we have. If you support it, let us know if you feel or if you want to contribute in any of the areas. We'd be very happy to have a look at it and see if there is ways to even expand on joining forces there. I think over the past months, we've already been growing our network of strategic advisors. who support us in business development, marketing, and other areas of business. I think that is what makes us really stand out of other projects in the same space. At this moment, and we will be announcing that soon, we are working on carving out a business development bounty program in the second half of this year, since we have a lot of people in our community with a background in healthcare, clinical research, and we would like to reach out to them and provide them an incentive. Although we think they are very incentivized, they're very active in the community, for which we are grateful. But we feel that as we now have a service offering, as we now really have a product that is ready to be used in clinical trials, we just want to maximize the current thinking power, the network power that we have within the crypto community. So yes, we're definitely looking out for new members or ambassadors for Triall.
Thank you, Adil. Well, that means we can conclude the section with the pre-registered questions. I'm just having a look at our YouTube and Telegram. I know that some questions were sent in just a few minutes before we started with the AMA, so I think we can also cater to one of those. One that I noticed a few minutes earlier was this one. I saw somewhere that you wrote that the clinical trial process takes 10 years. Will your project reduce this time? And if yes, how much will it be reduced? And to what extent will the cost be reduced financially compared to the past? So I'm happy to kick that one off, and then maybe Adil, if you have some additional remarks, you're very welcome to hop in. So indeed, sorry, yeah.
Go ahead, Ray, sorry.
Yeah, so indeed, if you look at the clinical development pipeline, so getting a new medicine to the patient, this generally takes 10 years. And to make matters worse, we see that of the 10 compounds that start this clinical development timeline, only one makes it to the market. So this was actually one of the main reasons for us to start Triall. And how can we make that process more efficient? How can we shorten the timelines, the time to market of new medicines? And how can we reduce the cost, which will eventually have an impact on the entire industry? And within that aim, we foresee a big role for blockchain. I think one of the key issues that we see is that there's a lot of fragmentation in the industry, where data is often scattered across different sites, systems, and locations. And as a result, many clinical trial professionals experience a lack of oversight over their clinical trial activities, which leads to delays. It leads to a lot of unnecessary costs, and is also at the source of a growing number of data integrity issues. And I think where Triall comes in is to, on one hand, offer an end-to-end platform that allows clinical research professionals to work in a single secure environment, generate their data, collect their documents, and essentially conduct all of their key clinical trial activities. And then underneath that end-to-end platform, we have our unique blockchain capabilities that help with promoting data integrity. Eventually will help with promoting auditability and interoperability. And in that way, we really aim to shorten the time to market of new medicines.
Yeah, maybe if I can add something to that, Ray, is that okay?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I think the idea of having an immutable audit trail, so an audit trail that cannot be changed, whereby you know for 100% certain that specific events have happened or that specific documents are there, that helps you to have another way of how you manage a clinical trial, where the classical way of how clinical trials are managed is that by managers, looking at trying to spread their attention across all, if not many, aspects of the clinical trial. And we feel if you have this immutable audit trail, that it de-risks the need to look at everything. So the way it should have a cost-reducing impact is that if you agree on that a specific event or the validity of a document or the integrity of data, that is absolutely secured, then you can focus your resources on other areas where you're not implementing blockchain. So that means that either with the same group of people, you can oversee more clinical trials, or you just need less money to oversee the clinical trials, because trust is then part of the system and not necessarily as part of the interpretation or the quality of the people who are overseeing the clinical trial. So we want to make this as concrete as possible. So in one of the upcoming collaborations, which I think we will announce very soon, we will really put this to the test. So we will go head to head in one clinical trial and compare blockchain-enabled technologies versus the classical way of working. And from that, we really want to learn how much is it that we're going to save in terms of cost, how much are we adding value in terms of quality, and how much are we decreasing in terms of timelines. We are convinced that there will be gains, but you need a head-to-head comparison to really show how much these gains are.
Thank you so much for adding that, Adil. I think that brings us to the end of hopefully an informative and insightful Ask Me Anything session for this month. As addressed last time, this will be a recurring event. So we will have a live video AMA like this on YouTube by the end of every month to make sure that you stay up to date on all the progress that we are making within Triall. So I hope that you've enjoyed the session. I want to thank our guests, Leo and Mark, today for the insightful discussion. So thanks again, and wishing you all a nice day.
Thanks all.
Thanks so much.